Hey, what is up, guys and ladies? Thanks for coming back. I'm Justin Carroll with Finished Timbers LLC, the Finished Carpenter. So, I know I wanted to get you guys in, do some tips and tricks on some installs and stuff like that, and that is my ultimate goal. But the job I was doing last week, I was installing some crown on a vaulted ceiling, and I had already discussed a deadline and everything with the customer, so I was trying to do what was in my best interest to let them know I appreciate their business and get the job done quick and efficient. And I wasn't able to toot a camera around with me all day, but you guys seem to like the last video I made about the Atlas 46 pouches and the Diamondback tool belt, so I just thought I'd try to get another video out on two very similar 12-inch miter saws, both dual beveling, compound sliding, and they both have zero clearance in the back. So I thought it was a great opportunity to show you guys two similar saws side by side and maybe help you out if you're looking to purchase a new one or if you're just getting into it and you're looking for your first saw. Before we jump into those, I had a great comment from one of my viewers on the last video that had said Atlas 46, Diamondback, and Occidental Leather, they all cater to left-handed people. So that's a great point. Another bonus to that, a little more insight on things that you can make yours and make work for you. So thank you so much for your comment. I do appreciate you guys watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe on the video, and let's get into these saws. So the Makita, this is the LS1219L. The L at the end is just the laser. Never had a laser, never had a light. I don't really plan on using it much, but I calibrated it and we'll see. So first off, out of the box, I really liked how smooth the miter adjustment was on this. Most saws are smooth, but this just feels really nice. I like the detents. They're very positive. They're right on. There's no slop in them. I like that a lot. The little tick marks on here are nice and fine, so you know that you can really dial that in. Another thing that they did on the adjustment in the miter is there's a lever here, if you press, that'll allow you to bypass all the detents. And I think that's great for if you're just trying to come off a 22.5 or a 45 where you'll slip into that detent. That allows you to just bump it just off and make some micro adjustments and lock that down so it's not going anywhere. And you can see if I pop this off, it'll just slip right back into 22.5. So cool feature there. They allow you to really dial things in. I like that a lot. I like to not have to fight with detents. Some saws you have to hold the button down and mess with it, and then you'll actually see yourself falling back into that detent when you're close to it. So I like that you can lock that out of the way. Now the fences was the reason I bought this saw. These nice big robust fences. So these are really nice, and the cut capacity is very nice on this. I think that this is the coolest thing ever, because if this was the saw blade, my hand, this is very exaggerated, but when I was calibrating it, the fence was kicked back just a little bit. And there's actually a set screw back here that as you tighten it will allow you to bring that fence back where you want it. So I thought that was super cool that just those small adjustments are there. And you can tell when I was taking them off, when I was putting them on a little bit, that it's actually very snug, which is nice. I don't want it to move around. I want it to be consistent. And Makita has offered that. And they've offered adjustments to make sure things stay where you want it to. Very cool thought there. Now, if you did see, I had to completely remove the fences. They do not slide out of the way. I know some people might not like that, so maybe Makita might not be for you if you don't like that. Personally, if I'm making a bevel cut on the flat, this is all the fence I really care about. Very rarely am I cutting something upright on a bevel, but it does happen. Still, I think I could get the job done with what we have here if I do need to make any cuts like that. Another thing too, how smooth the arm on this is. It just feels really nice. It's nice and smooth. You do have to keep these arms clean on any saw like this because they will get gritty. But I haven't had any issues with it. I like it so far. Beveling this saw is actually very simple. You just kind of crank this a couple turns to the left to unlock it, and you'll manually adjust from there. To bevel to the right hand side, there's a button in the back you'll press to go over to the right, and then obviously go past 0 and your positive stop there to lock that back down, and it's not going anywhere. The bevel actually also has 22.5, 33.9, and 45-degree positive stops on the bevel. So just something cool, if you do bevel cut a lot, you can make quick cuts with those quick positive stops. So I like that a lot. I really enjoy the usage of this. I like how the bevel adjustment is right up in your workspace. You're not reaching around the back or anything like that. It's just nice and easy to function this whole saw. The base extensions on these actually have a little fence, which I thought might not be too useful, but it's cool. I could maybe get a bigger one made. And there's a couple threaded holes on the front of these for whatever you could think of, any little jig or some sort of stop, or I don't know, but at least there's some things there that'll kind of let you customize this to your own. It gives you options, and I always like when I purchase something to have options to make it more fit my needs more, and I think Makita's kind of offered that here. So overall, 2 weeks in, I think this is a great saw. One thing I did not mention, the dust collection on this is absolutely incredible. It's got a boot behind the blade and a huge boot behind the fence that just eats up dust. It's very, very nice, very efficient dust collection system. I do want to talk about the triggers, the safety switch on the triggers, and the startup on these, but we're going to compare those side to side so you guys can see those right next to each other, back to back. Now if we jump over to the Bosch, this is the GCM12SD, and the Bosch is also smooth in its miter adjustment. It takes a little more muscle sometimes to move it, but it's very smooth, it's very nice. I like it a lot. I used it for years and did great work with it. The biggest gripe I did have about this saw were the detents, and there's some slop in them, probably about a 32nd of an inch, so kind of a big deal. When you're trying to do things quick and efficiently, I was having to stop and make sure that it was sitting where I knew it would cut well at, and then lock it down. So my detent wasn't even much of a detent. I was still having to find that spot, that perfect spot to where I knew it's going to make the cut I want. And it was just too much movement for me. So that was the biggest issue I had with this. And I do believe it's because the detent plate on the bottom here is made out of plastic. So maybe you could get something machined or made that is more sturdy and might not give you any issues there. So we talked about the big old fences on the Makita. These are the tiny little fences on the Bosch. They weren't terrible. I didn't ever hate them. I never disliked using this saw. But these fences do slide out of the way for bevel cuts. So if you're someone that wants a fence, you want something there, this might be a little more up your alley if that's a big deal to you. So that's something to note, is the fences. And then the arm slide, the axial glide sliding arm on this it blows every saw I've ever used out of the water. It's the smoothest moving sliding saw that I've ever used, and that was my favorite thing about this. So to get into the bevel feature a little bit, again, it's up in your workspace, which is something I always look for. You'll flip this lever up, and then you have to manually adjust. Now the Bosch takes a little more muscle than the Makita, but it's not terrible. To bevel over to the right side, there's a switch here. You'll turn that clockwise, and then it'll bevel over to the right. And then obviously past 0 again, boom, positive stop, and you can lock it back down. Same thing, if you were on your bevel, you would just hit that lever back down, you would lock in place. The only positive stop on the bevel feature for the Bosch is at 45 degrees. So it's not terrible. There's nothing wrong with not having as many stops. I just think that it's nicer to have your 22.5 on there as well, because that's also a very common angle that we use. So the dust collection on the Bosch. Before we get into that, I know I mentioned the table extensions. They also have the base or the table extensions on the Bosch. There's no fence on them. Still work very nice. They're very robust and big, and they work well. But the dust collection, as we were saying on the Bosch, just does not cut it for me. Luckily, a lot of times I didn't really need it. I don't work in my shop that often. But there's just a little boot. I've seen people put some aftermarket boots on there that seem to work pretty well, but the dust collection on the Bosch is not really all the way there. You'll have to do some modifications if you are purchasing this brand new. So that's kind of in a nutshell some small things that I noticed. And like I said, let's compare these triggers and the startups on both of these saws. So we'll start with the Bosch since I'm right here. If you're doing like ambidextrous things, your switch for the Bosch helps out for left-handed and right-handed cuts, because no matter what hand you're using, you can push the safety switch out of the way with whichever hand. It moves both ways. And the Makita just has a little button. So it's the one thing I've just been trying to get used to, is using the button. It really hasn't been a big deal, but just something new to me, something I'm trying to get used to. And then the biggest thing too, when I started using this saw, I had no idea what I was missing out on, but let's listen to this fire up and then listen to the Makita fire up. And you're gonna see the Bosch almost jump a little bit because of how fast this starts. Really jerky, very quick. Now the Makita, I had used other Makitas, but I didn't use them that often, so I never really took into account how nice it is. But if you'll listen to the Makita startup now. Very nice, very smooth, it's soft, it's just kind of comes into it nice and easy. And I really like that, because sometimes if you're trying to get your cut line next to your workpiece, you'll pick the saw up a little bit and you'll turn that saw on, and there's been a couple times with the Bosch where it would jerk down and it's kind of not safe, and it would mess up my workpiece sometimes. So something I like, that nice soft start, and I can come back into that cut nice and easy, nice and smooth. So again, I'm just trying to point out some things that you're gonna see when you get this saw. I'm not going over dimensions and weight and cut capacity and all the stuff that you can see on a manufacturer's website. You can view that. I'm trying to give you stuff that might be better or worse for you and compare two very similar saws. Again, 12-inch miter saws, dual bevel, compound sliding with zero clearance in the back. So I thought it was just a really good opportunity to let you guys see these two side by side. You know what? Before I let you go, let's do a quick dust collection thing. I don't have my vacuum hooked up, but we'll just kind of see where all the dust goes when we start to cut this. So let's see what happens when we start to cut with the Makita. I know there's no vacuum, but if it's efficient, there's going to be a lot more dust coming out the back than there is sitting around the front. Alright, so you can see all that stuff just shooting up in the air there, and that tells me, and I already know it's true because I've had a vacuum hooked up, and once that thing's on there, it's taken all that out of the way. So all that stuff that was flying up in the air is going in the vacuum, and I could not be happier with how well the dust collection is on that Makita. Now for the Bosch, you might notice I'm going to take the bag off so you can see how much actually shoots out the side compared to how much just lands and builds up in the back here. So you'll notice that a lot came out the back, but there was also a lot that just was not getting picked up back here. And I think the only reason it loses out is just that big boot Makita has sitting behind the fences. It's not terrible, but it just does not compare when you have a vacuum hooked up to these two. The Makita is just going to do a better job. So that's my first impressions on the Makita compared to my 4 years on the Bosch. Again, that was the LS1219L and the Bosch GCM12SD. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. And if you could, keep commenting on the videos, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I read everything. I really care about this. So thanks all. I appreciate it, and God bless.